The Canadian government is facing growing calls to help Cuba amid attempts from the U.S. government to choke off the nation's fuel supplies. Federal officials have called on the Liberal government to send aid to Cuba. People there are facing blackouts and shortages of food, fuel, and medicine. Earlier this year, the U.S. cut off oil supplies from Venezuela, Cuba's main supplier. And since then, Donald Trump has threatened to hit countries with heavy tariffs if they attempted to help, saying the Cuban government appears, quote, ready to fall. My next guest says Canada should step in. Ben Rowswell is a former Canadian ambassador to Venezuela and a consultant for Catalyze 4, a strategic advisory firm, and he joins me now. Ben, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on the show.
So you feel that Canada should help Cuba. How come?
Well, let's take just the perspective of the Cuban people. I mean, these are practically our neighbors. It is a terrible, terrible thing to go through a man-made humanitarian disaster. I saw it with my own eyes in Venezuela. That was man-made by the government of Nicolas Maduro and their economic policies. But still, the impact on people when they can't get medical care, when they can't get food, when they start losing weight, when they start dying of malnutrition, that is what the Cuban people are now beginning to experience. And we shouldn't wish that on any country in the world. And if there's ever any man-made circumstances that are leading people to suffer, we should be looking at ways to stop that from happening, just at a basic human level. Then when you look at it, Canada's our interests are primarily sovereignty. That is by far the lodestar of our foreign policy now. It has to be the number one objective, and the principal threat to our sovereignty right now is the Donroe Doctrine enunciated by the United States that it can do whatever it wants to whichever neighbor. So anything it does to other neighbors, it could potentially do to Canada unless we disrupt that pattern. And for that reason, I think we need to be joining hands with other countries across the Americas to provide this humanitarian assistance to Cuba, precisely because the United States is interpreting this Cuban situation as the implementation of this doctrine that's a threat to Canada just as much as it is to any country in the Americas.
But there does seem to be some fear about angering, and when I say other allies, I am specifically talking about the United States. If, in fact, Canada were to intervene, to offer aid, is there a way around, is there a world in which aid could be given and not go against the United States? Is that possible?
My understanding is the threat from the United States is about the provision of oil, and I'm not sure exactly which kind of humanitarian assistance Canada is conveying, but it's not clear to me that providing food and medicine and what have you would necessarily trigger that. But the point I think that we have to take into consideration is that Canada's sovereignty comes first. It comes before the emotions of any foreign leader. And so if there's a foreign leader that will be upset by our actions, tough. That's Canada's sovereign right to do as we please, particularly in a case of a country that is just recently enunciated a completely new approach to the hemisphere where it does not respect the sovereignty of other countries. We are in a brave new day for Canadian foreign policy when the United States makes that dramatic break with the past, and therefore every situation now in the Americas is going to be a test of the sovereignty of Canada and its fellow countries, and that's why we need to actually take action precisely because of the threat coming from the United States. In addition to the basic issue here, the well-being of the people of Cuba.
No, of course, and and the point you're making, many would also say that Mark Carney delivered that speech in Davos, and it was saying sort of similar things about charting a path separate from the United States. That said, there will be others on the other side of this who say, listen, we're trying to enter into trilateral negotiations for trade and hoping that the United States will be part of that for the better, for the economy within the country. What do you say to that side of this?
Yeah, so there's like all difficult foreign policy questions, there's some competing objectives. My argument is that sovereignty is the top objective, and it's the immediate short-term as well as long-term objective, and that should trump all else. But there is also this important objective of maintaining the prosperity of our country, which depends on trade. So it is a difficult situation to to reconcile those two. The point that I would make about our trade negotiations with the United States is that they're likely to fail anyway. The chances of us negotiating a successful deal that protects Canada's sovereignty is relatively limited. So let's not put too many eggs in that basket. And secondly, that there's likely to be some significant volumes of trade with the United States, regardless of what happens with this one agreement. I would concede it's an important agreement, but it's a short-term arrangement. CUSMA is not likely to last for very long, and if these negotiations don't work out well, there'll be another negotiation the next year, there'll be another trade crisis. So we need to keep our eyes on the long game here. The long game is Canada's sovereignty. There will be ups and downs in our trade relationship with the United States, probably mostly downs, to be honest, right now, and we can't put the rest of Canada's foreign policy and the rest of Canada's interests, including its most important one, on hold.
Ben Rowswell, a former Canadian ambassador to Venezuela. Thank you.
You're welcome.